Hey Rob, take two. I had a little bit of a moment before. How are you?
I'm good. Use your moment over.
My moment is over.
I think I have 9 moments a day. It's all right. It's all good. We all have moments. What's going on? You good? How's,
we,
how's your Friday? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Well, it's good. It bucketed down with rain, so I kind of got stuck for about half
Oh,
an hour waiting for it to stop before I got home from being out and having lunch with someone. And now we're here doing this. How's your day been?
yeah, it's been good. I've been fighting with Premiere Pro all morning. Every 20 minutes or so, it decides to crash. So, we can talk about the weather or software that doesn't work, or we can talk about something with substance. Why don't we do that?
I think that's an excellent idea. So today we're talking about sales, which I love this topic so much, and I love the psychology behind selling and sales. So, what are your thoughts around selling and sales and the whole process?
Everything is sales, right? If I want to bring you to a podcast, I've got to sell it to you that it's going to be worth your time. It's going to be worth, you're going to get something out of it. If I want to go for dinner at a restaurant and eat steak and not eat vegan food, then I've got to sell it to my missus that I don't like vegan food. Everything in life is sales, but I think fundamentally the way that people buy things has radically changed. And one of the things that I've seen a lot in my business over the last couple of years is the shift in the way people buy versus the way people are selling. People still think that the traditional method of selling something, whether you're in a retail shop or you're on a website or you're in Amazon or something like that, is the same as what it was 3 or 4 years ago. And the reality is it's not. It's very, very different. People are fact checking you at the time that you're talking to them, trying to sell them something, and they're calling BS on everything that you do at the time that you're doing it. So you need some really modern strategies to actually communicate your message and get that across to the people that you're trying to sell to.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the biggest things that I found working in my business in regards to selling and sales when I talk to clients is the very first question I like to ask is, how do you buy? How do you purchase something? And so helping them understand what their sales cycle or what their purchasing cycle is so that they can understand somebody else's buying cycle when they're going to purchase from them.
Have you noticed a common theme when you ask that question to people?
I've primarily worked with a lot of women within my business, and a lot of the very first question is, the very first answer is, I'm not a salesperson. And exactly what you just said, everything is selling. It doesn't matter what it is that you're selling to someone, whether you're negotiating with your child and you're selling whatever it is you need to them, or whether you're selling something within your business or it's a product or a service. And I found that in the process, people go, I hate salespeople. I hate to sell. I'm not a salesperson, all these things. And I'm like, okay, great. So you're actually repelling people from coming and purchasing from you. No, I want to sell to them. Well, you want to sell to them, that's great. But until we clean up the underlying energetics around your belief around walking into somewhere to purchase. And so I use the example of when you walk into a clothing shop, how do you feel when a salesperson walks up? And then I use the other analogy of when you walk into a car place to look at a new car, what's the energy that you feel when you go into that? And they're very different energies because one's a higher ticket product and one is generally, like the clothing is generally a lower ticket, which they feel a lot easier with someone coming over and saying, do you want to purchase something for $50 opposed to something for 50,000?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I like to do, because as an entrepreneur, you have to master the art of selling. Is I try and look at pop culture, and I look at pop culture and what are people doing in pop culture, and how can you overlay that into your business process, and how can you utilize what people are doing on a daily basis to incorporate in it so it feels familiar to them. And that's what I mean by pop culture. What is it that's happening around us all the time? And one of the things that I've noticed in the last couple of years, particularly with the advent of streaming television that we've had here in Australia, since Netflix came to Australia, 10 years ago now, is that everybody's an expert on movies. And everybody isn't, a topic of conversation when you see your friends and family sometimes is, hey, what are you watching on Netflix? Or I watch this really cool show on Stan or whatever. And people are talking about that a lot. And what you don't realize is that human communication, the foundation of human communication is storytelling. And the basis of selling in the modern age is storytelling. There's always a hero, there's a villain, and there's a guide. There's the hero, Luke Skywalker. There's the guide, who is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the villain is his father, Darth Vader. So every story has that fundamental narrative to it. And if you can overlay those modern day narratives into your sales process, meaning the customer is the hero of the story, you're the guide helping them to achieve what it is that they want to achieve, and the villain is the problem that you're solving. And so together, you, the hero and the guide, are going to solve that problem. So if you can overlay some pop culture into the way people are absorbing information, and they're getting information like that from what they're watching on a daily basis on streaming television. They watch their favorite series, which has a story, and sometimes there's 3 or 4 stories happening at the same time. You know, my daughter discovered Game of Thrones recently, and she's watched the whole series end to end twice. And I think there's 7 or 8 seasons of it or something like that. And my missus introduced me to Game of Thrones, I think in season 4. And I was like, oh, I don't want to watch that for. And I watched it for an episode. And I was like, oh, that's all right. It's kind of okay. I watched another episode and I was like, oh, it's okay. But there's too many things going on for my singular male focus. My mind is only able to focus on one story narrative at a time. But Game of Thrones has these 7 story arcs all happening simultaneously across 7 or 8 seasons. And it's like my daughter's saying, do you remember this character or this character or this character? And I'm like, nah, the only one I can remember is Jon Snow. That was it. I could just remember the dude. So you got to be careful if you're using pop culture as your guide in your business and you're trying to sell something, that you don't overlay too many narratives, because you'll create confusion, and that confusion will trigger fight or flight and the customer will be out of there. So just be careful if you're trying to use the pop culture thing and you're using story narratives to actually help you sell.
Yeah, and I never realized until one day I was talking to someone about selling that I've grown up in sales, and I've grown up watching my dad sell, because dad was in real estate, and learning bits and pieces along my journey which were just instilled in me, which I didn't actually understand. So really getting to know who you are when it comes to selling and it comes to sales, it's really understanding what is your product, your service, the thing that you're bringing to the market, but also what's the problem that it's solving, but also listening to the person of what it is that they truly deeply need, and not just selling them something so that you can get across the line and you've got commission breath to make the sale, so that because you need the money and you need the sale.
Yeah, you got to be very careful of not coming across needy to customers, because it is all in your facial expressions and your body language, and the neediness comes out in the tone and the inflection in your voice. And there's so many little nuances in human communication. All that NLP BS actually has some merit when it comes to those types of things that you talk about. You know, how do you see things? How do you feel things? Are you hearing what I'm saying? What sort of person are they as you're communicating those messages? I don't really believe in that NLP stuff. I think that's like kind of something you can use as a little bit of salt and pepper to help you with the main course of your sales. And I think for me personally, what really helps is to create enough intrigue, and to help people lean in, you have to use intrigue. Because the minute I figure out what you're trying to sell to me, the minute I figure out what you're trying to do to me, I'll tune out. And I'll pick up my phone and I'll start texting, or I'll start looking at Instagram, or start doing something else. And if you can hold somebody's attention for more than 59 seconds in this TikTok age that we live in, you're doing well. And the way to do that, the way to hold somebody's attention, is to do that with intrigue. And the reason for that is because intrigue creates anticipation. And when you have anticipation, I'm trying to like anticipate what it is that he or she is saying to me. I can't really anticipate. I don't really know what it is that you're trying to say to me. So that's why I'm listening. That's why you've got my attention. But the minute you satiate me and you give me the answers to the question, or you close the gap in the story, I'll tune out and go, no, that's not for me. I'm out of here. So you've got to learn to manage the intrigue and the anticipation, but you also got to be careful not to oversource the pudding. It's like that Game of Thrones analogy, you know, there's 7 story arcs happening all at the same time in a 50-minute episode. It's like too much for a normal person. You really kind of have to be into those types of stories to keep up with the stories. And particularly if the characters' names are some strange Latin name and they're talking some strange made up language by movies and television, You got to be careful because it creates fight or flight. So there's a very fine balance, and it's an art form of using intrigue to create anticipation, but also not closing the story gaps that are there. So anticipation is helping you to try and figure out what's going on. I can't figure out, so there's a gap in the story, and then I'm going to change directions and go over there and create more intrigue and anticipation over there. And then at the end, I'm going to bring it full circle. So one really good thing to study if you're interested in the art of sales, and one thing that I look at a lot, is stand-up comedy. So stand-up comedians have got a really great way of starting out a story, and their stories follow an arc and a narrative. And if they're really clever, they bring that all the way back around to the end of their show. And the last joke that they tell is completely related to the first joke that they tell. And that's the circular methodology that they're using. If you can use that and figure out how to tell your stories and tell better stories while you're selling, you'll sell far more than you could ever possibly hope to learning some bullshit sales system from some guru online.
Yes, I agree. And when it comes to, like, you can have a sales process, you can have a sales script, and you can follow it to the T. But I feel as though, understanding and learning how to do that dance and know how to tell your story, know how to bring it back, and also really being there and listening to what the person has to say, like what is it that they want, and knowing that you can help them. And the needy and desperation energy is one of the biggest turn-offs. People can feel that a mile away.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I just want to kind of push back on you a little bit there when you said the word script. I believe that's a mistake that people make in the modern day, is that the way people buy is completely different to the way somebody with a sales script is selling. So if you have a script, a telemarketing script that you've got going on the phone, and you're trying to go through that script, interruptive marketing like that just doesn't work these days. What you have to do is figure out how to cut through and hold somebody's attention for a second. There's a lot of really great methodologies you can use out there. Jordan Belfort is an expert at that. He uses a methodology called the straight line sales methodology. And there's a couple of really key points that he uses in there. The first one is you've got to be sharp as a tack. And when you're sharp as a tack, it immediately gets my attention because there's a status alignment that's happening there. When you're sharp as a tack and you sound like you know what you're talking about, immediately I go, oh, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, or this girl knows what she's talking about. What is it? And I lean in for a second, just for 1 second. And then if I use a little bit more anticipation, or a bit more, intrigue to create a bit more anticipation, I'll have you for another second. So the way that Jordan Belfort promotes that and uses that on the phone, if we pick up the phone and I go, hey Lexi, it's Rob Russ. I just need 1 moment of your time. I just need to talk to you about X. Have you just got 1 moment here for me? And everybody has got 1 moment. So if you're sharp as a tack and you're really assertive on the front end of your call, you'll be able to cold call somebody pretty effectively. And the strategies and techniques work really well. And if they go, oh, I'm too busy, I'm right in the middle of something. Look, I know you're right in the middle of something. And so the straight line sales technique, the customer will take you off the straight line. You're trying to go from point A to point B, and the customer will force you to meander away from that. And eventually you'll meander so far away from the line, you'll buy into their BS and you'll lose the sale. So if somebody goes, oh no, I don't want to talk to you, mate. You're just bothering me. I didn't request that. Stop it, go away, whatever. You can say, wait, 1 sec. I only need 1 second of your time. Just let me share this with you and then I'll let you go. Is that okay? And they'll go, all right, what is it, man? What have you got? What are you trying to sell to me? And then they open up just a little bit. Well, have you seen blah blah? And then you can launch into your script, if you like, or to your pitch. But you can't use a pitch that was given to you in the early 2000s on door-to-door sales when you're trying to sell electricity, or when you're trying to sell Optus when that first came out. Those scripts are gone. Those days are gone. Equally in retail, I've worked with a lot of people on a consulting basis in the retail space. So when somebody comes into the store, a lot of the time, maybe 70 to 80% of the time, they're going in there to try on the clothes so they can get the right size to go away and buy it back online, because they're going to save themselves X amount of dollars, sometimes a considerable amount. I did that with a pair of shoes recently. Went in, tried a pair of shoes on. The guy was like, oh, how they fit? Yeah, they're good. They're the right size. Took the shoes off, put them back in the box. He goes, oh, you don't want to buy them? And I was like, nah, I'm good, man. See ya. Went home, bought the things for $100 less. Like, why would I give him an extra $100 when he couldn't even be bothered like trying to help me or trying to sell something to me. So the answer is I'm not going to do that. And I wasn't intending on doing that, although I could have been persuaded if there was something else. Hey, Rob, did you know if you get those shoes today, you can get a hoodie over there? Those Nike hoodies over there are normally $139, and you can pick one of those up for $69. We can get that for you. I'll chuck in a couple of pairs of socks for you. Why don't you get all that stuff together, man? Let's get it sorted out for you. If you're using an assumptive close in retail or something like that there, that can help you move forward and help you get across the line. But for some reason, retail businesses and people that work in retail fail to recognize that people are there to try stuff on and then go and buy it online, but they've still got the opportunity to scoop them up and to actually sell something to them there on the spot. I probably would have bought those shoes so I didn't have to wait. But the reality was he couldn't be bothered with me, so I couldn't be bothered, and I'll just wait. It's not a problem for me. It's only $100 as well.
And I've done that years ago. At the time, my boyfriend, well, then turned into my husband, he wanted to buy, we were going out somewhere. He's like, let's go shopping and buy a dress. And we'd walk into these beautiful shops, and the women, like the sales assistants, just didn't have any time to help or talk or whatever. And I'm like, they've just looked me up and down. I said, I'm not buying anything. He's like, but you really like the dress. I'm like, I don't care how much I like the dress. We can go, this was way before online shopping
before
really
all this
started.
online stuff, yeah.
And I was like, no, because I want to be served. I want to have an experience. And I think that the whole sales process is an experience of getting to know someone and getting to understand them and getting to know what it is that they truly deeply want by having a conversation and really opening that up and feeling into, is this a win-win for both of you?
Yeah, absolutely. What are the mistakes I see people make in business as well related to that? You know, if we move away from the retail example, because that's all based around training, right? If people had better training and they cared about their jobs a little bit more because they were performance-based, then they probably wouldn't behave like what you'd experienced. So there's ways to solve that if somebody's listening or watching this and they think, well, yeah, I've got stuff like that. How do I solve that problem? Well, that's easy. Just make the whole thing performance-based, make it commission-based, and that will help you to get them to actually do something about it because they've got some skin in the game, or they've got the opportunity to have some more skin in the game. The bigger that the cart value ends up being, the more opportunity that creates for themselves. The problem is that retail works on such skinny margins. It's very rare that you're able to do something like that. But you know, it's a really interesting proposition that you put forward, that you want the whole sales thing to be an experience. And if we move away from the retail example and you go to the one-to-one example, when you're pitching to somebody like we're talking right now, if you're selling to somebody over Zoom like we are right now, then yeah, that's a very different experience as well. And one of the things that I see people do wrong all the time is that they try and acquire the lead, they try and sell the lead, then they try and deliver the product or service to the lead, they project manage them, and then they've got to go and resell to them again. They're doing all 5 or 6 things in that sales cycle, however long your sales cycle is or however many steps that you have in there, and they have one person trying to do all of those things. The best thing that I've seen people do over the last couple of years with the advent of outsourcing is outsource all of their advertising, outsource all of their lead generation, outsource all of the front end of the customer filtering process. So I get the leads, I've got to filter and figure out if they're the right people. Then the salesperson comes in. But the person delivering the product or service has nothing to do with that cycle. So it makes it look and feel like a much bigger business. It makes it look and feel like it's much more inclusive. And then the person, the customer that's buying, feels like they're going through several different layers to actually get what it is that they want, particularly if you've got a high ticket item. So if you've got a product or course, some coaching, you might be selling something for $4,000 or $5,000. I don't want to be dealing with the person that's delivering that $4,000 or $5,000 thing. I want to create more status. And I want that person that's delivering the $4,000 or $5,000 product or service to seem like they're almost out of reach unless I pay for them, in which case they become in reach. So having a high ticket salesperson there on the front end, paying them good commissions to actually execute that task for you, is one of the best things that you could do in a consulting/coaching business.
Yes, but I feel that when you're at the beginning of your journey, it's very different from that point. I feel like that's a way yes, I feel as though that is like the next step. So if you're starting out in business and you're starting to learn around
Oh,
sales, you're
no
starting to
question.
learn
Yeah,
around
you got to do it yourself.
about
Yeah,
all
you
of
have
that,
to
you've got to
have
do it
hands-on.
yourself.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you've got to learn how to do the sales yourself, because if you're outsourcing your sales stuff to somebody else, you've got to understand if there's kinks in the sales process to why are they not converting your process, your program, your system, whatever it is that is being put out there. And like, I love having sales conversations with people about, like when I get onto a sales call with somebody, when it was me personally selling my own product, I would actually take them through an actual coaching session.
Hmm.
And then at the
Yeah, you got to
end,
try before you buy. That's a fantastic way to sell. Yeah.
and so there's no, I don't go through a sales script. Years ago, when I was learning how to do sales, I worked for a telemarketing sales company, and it was script, just make as many phone calls as you can and fail as fast as you can. If the biggest thing that you take away from this call is fail as fast as you can, continue getting on phone calls and figure out what works best for you and what are the things that work and what are the things that don't work, and really hone in on the things that do work for you and really focus on how do you expand that, and then dissolve and let go of the things that are not working for you in regards to getting people over the line. But it's also really understanding, how do you want your business to look like? How do you want your sales process to look like? What is the thing that you want for your life and for your business?
It's a really important point that you raised there from the early days of dialing for dollars and pounding the phone, right? Telemarketing. The way I describe that is you've got to kiss a few frogs, and you have to kiss a few frogs to find a prince or a princess, and that prince or princess is your customer, of course. And sometimes you might have to kiss what feels like 1,000 frogs before you find one, but then you look closely at what you're doing, what's working, and then you can figure out how to actually go to the next level. And we're just talking conceptually here about sales just in general, and you're quite right when you point out as well that in order to start out, you need to go and kiss a few frogs and sell the products and services yourself. It's a very rare business that has a minimum viable product and they're able to go straight to market with thousands of dollars of Google ads and then somebody backing them in a sales team and whatnot as well. But equally, that's all very easy to do these days, and you can do that if you've got your MVP squared away. Then you can put those layers of transition there, if you like, because if that's ultimately how you're going to sell, you should be testing that as well. You just need to be budgeted for that properly on the front end. If you're a small business or you're a coach or you're somebody that's selling directly to your customers, there's no better way to give them that experience than give them that experience. And they'll know pretty quickly whether or not they're a fit and whether or not they want to. But I think more importantly, you'll know if they're the right client for you. That's one of the mistakes that I've made a lot, right? I made a lot of mistakes in sales, but the biggest one that I've made is thinking that the people that I'm talking to are going to be good clients. They seem like they know what they want. They feel like that they've got a handle on everything, but the reality is they're looking to me to handle it. And I've made the mistake many times of thinking that I know what they want and I can handle what they want, but they never communicate. So there's a breakdown in communication there, and they're actually not the right client for me, but I took them on, I took their money, and now I'm stuck with them. Like, what do I do? That's happened to me more times than I actually realize. And I think part of the reason for that is because I'm actually in that process. What I need to do is to get out of that process, let the lead generators handle the onboarding of them, let the salespeople sell, and then come in and actually deliver, and let the salespeople be the mechanism that filter it out, not me, because I just want the sale, right? Because I want to get paid.
Yep. And yeah, and every business is different, so every process is going to be different, and it's okay to know that there's a structure and there's a system for lots of different things, but everything morphs into guiding you to what's best for you. And like you said, not every person's the right person for you, and every person's not the right person for me. And same with you, not everyone, the listeners, not everyone's going to be the right person for you. And it's okay to say, no, I don't want to work with you. We're not a great fit. And when you do that, you're creating more space for the right person to flow through into your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I prefer the salespeople to say that. I don't want to be saying that to the actual customer. I prefer the salesperson to be saying, hey, this is not really a fit for us, and when they are a fit and they do come through, then I'm getting good people and I only have to deal with the good energy that's coming my way. It's really interesting you say that each business is different. And I said at the top of the show here that the way people buy has fundamentally changed, but a lot of businesses and brands are still selling, even though they haven't maneuvered their business or changed their process to do that. But there is one thing that still remains the same and will remain the same no matter where we are in history. Whether we've got artificial intelligence as a chip in our brain or we rewind the clock 100 years, there's one thing that those two things have in common, and that is that humans make decisions based around emotions, based around how they feel, not what they think. They'll rationalize themselves out of a sales process, but they will feel their way into the actual sales process. And the sooner that you as a salesperson can understand what it is that makes them tick as it relates to your product or service, the faster you'll be able to get them to actually feel the emotions that they need to feel to actually make that transaction happen and to make the purchase. And I really think that that's a mistake I made a lot as well, thinking that I was a rational person and I just make decisions based on what I do or don't need. And a lot of people would think that, do I really need a pair of $200 shoes? No, I've got 3 of them sitting there. Like, why do I need another pair of shoes? Well, I can rationalize my way and say, well, 2 of them are like 3 years old and I've got a couple 100 kilometers on each of them. Maybe I should get some new shoes that'll be better for I can rationalize myself into it, right? And I can justify a purchase. But a $200 purchase for me is like, yeah, whatever, man, just get it. Why are you even contemplating that? But if it was suddenly a $25,000 purchase or a $200,000 purchase, now I'm really rational, but I'm also fighting against the feelings that I have. So I think if you can use stories, you can tell stories, you can use intrigue to create anticipation, and you can create gaps in your story that can only be filled with the products or services that you've got, that creates enough of a call to action to your prospects and to the people that you're talking to get them to take action, to get them to actually buy. And don't fall into the trap. I fell into the trap for years of selling off rational ideas. I can get you a 10 times return on your Google ad spend. Can you? So who gives a shit? No one cares. What they care about is how they'll feel when they have 10 times more sales because they have 10 times more revenue, or maybe they'll have 10 times as big a headache that you're creating for them, and that doesn't work when you go out there and say, hey, I can get you a 10x return on your Google ad spend. Someone, what? It doesn't work. You've got to use more emotion into the actual communication piece there in order to get people to across the line and to win the business.
Yeah, and it's what makes you different than somebody else that says the same thing.
Exactly right, and it's about how they feel about you. Do I feel like I could work with this person? I feel like this guy or girl would be the right fit for me. I feel like they know what they're talking about. I feel like, and if you feel, felt, found, that's old school sales methodology, right? Yeah. I feel, felt, found. Well, I think I just threw up in my own mouth, but it works. And they're the fundamental things that don't change. Whether it's 1823 or it's 2023, you still have to have a feeling about something in order to make a rational decision about it, because it's our emotions that are driving our behavior, not your rational thought process driving your behavior. If I try and rationalize something and suddenly I feel shit about it, I'm feeling terrible about it, it means I'm not going to do it. But if I'm feeling really good about it, then I kind of rationalize, I can't really afford this. Now I start to feel bad about it and I'm talking myself out of it. So you got to be careful of not crossing the Rubicon there, so to speak, and not being able to get the customer back because they've rationalized themselves out of a sale.
Yeah. And I love this conversation, and I love talking about it more and more and more, because I think it's such a huge topic. And I think that people stepping into business at whatever stage that you're in business, I feel as though that there's always room for improvement in cleaning up your sales process and your sales system, and how to streamline that better for yourself so that you're making a bigger impact in the world and in other people's world.
Yeah, what I would say to streamline it, close the loop on that, close out the show on this one, is if you can, try and extract yourself from the sales process. If you're the business owner, if you're the person delivering the product or service, unless you're giving a try before you buy, like you mentioned, which is a really good idea. That's the ideal sales process for what you do. But if you're not that, if you're somebody that delivers a service, like I've got a service-based business, I deliver services for people. I'm not giving you a try before you buy. My time is not free. So I just got to get away from that process of actually being there in front of the customer. I might be able to help in acquiring a customer and acquiring the inquiry. Then I hand it off to somebody in the marketing department to actually get them some more information. And the salesperson comes in over the top of that and actually makes the transaction actually happen. And then I concentrate on the delivery and execution. But I'm not delivering or executing. I've got people that do that for me. I'm running the business. I'm the business owner. I'm not trying to get caught in the down and dirty weeds of actually executing on this thing, because it's very time consuming, and those people are way better at doing the stuff that I need to do anyway. So that's the other thing you've got to look for, is that can you let go of some of these things in this sales process? You know, you might have a 5 or 6 or a 10 step process. Can you just let go of 5 or 6 or 10 of those things? Can you let go of all of those things and focus yourself on what it is that you should be doing, which is what the customers want from you, which is the delivery and execution?
Love it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Rob, and chatting all things sales.
All right, my absolute pleasure. Did you learn something? I definitely learned something from you.
Did you? What did you learn from me?
Well, I always learn lots when I talk to you. We talk a lot, and I didn't know that you did a telemarketing job. That's really interesting. That kind of explains a lot.
I did do a telemarketing, and it was hard. I am not going to lie.
Who was that for? What were you selling?
It was a personal development company when I was first stepping into the coaching arena. I was learning all things coaching and mindset and all the things, and it was amazing. Yeah.
So let's close out with this conversation, because I think it's an important one to have, is that I don't really believe that cold calling works in this day and age. First of all, because there's a do not call list. And, you know, if somebody's calling you and you don't want that, you can just say, hey, man, do you know I'm on the do not call list? And they'll hang up on you straight away, because it's a $10,000 fine. And so you can make those people go away. But there's still plenty of agencies out there that will claim that they will cold call for you. And there's plenty of, I must get hit up. I think I was joking about it with you the other day. I must get hit up 5 times a week from people on LinkedIn saying, I'll do all the outreach for you. I'll find 50 clients for you per month. And it's like, well, how? Are you going to just randomly connect with people with some random profile and randomly spam people? And then, you know, it's no different to putting junk mail in 500 letterboxes out the front of where I'm sitting right now. You know, I'm hoping that, like, as a real estate agent, if I put 500 letterbox drops in there, that 2 of them will say, yeah, I want to sell my house. But really, is that actually how the world works? Not anymore. It doesn't work. I don't think cold calling works anymore. So I would say to your audience, Lexi, just to be careful of not being drawn into thinking that you can cold call somebody for that to actually work. And running advertising in Facebook or Instagram, I would also suggest that that's almost the same thing. Interruptive marketing like that is a problem. And it's a problem that we all suffer from in our days, because you just scroll past those ads. I'm not interested in that. And even if I click on that ad and I opt into something like that, the minute I get an email, I unsubscribe from it. And that's just costing the business or the brand money, thinking that they can get that conversion there. And when you see conversions that happen in places like that, that is really, in my view, an anomaly. I think it's chasing unicorns and rainbows to think that you're able to actually get something like that to work. What you've got to do is you've got to meet people on their turf and sell to them when they're interested in buying. And the easiest way to do that is when somebody goes to Google or to YouTube or to a search engine of some description, Bing or Yahoo, or it doesn't matter, and they're searching for how do I buy, what's the best thing, whatever the keywords are for you've got, and then your ad shows up there, because you're showing them your product or service at the time that they're looking for it. You're not interrupting them. So, you know, cold calling has transmuted into social media advertising. That's my kind of closing thought there for you.
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Lexi. I'll see you next time.
Bye.